Hello, and welcome back to Forgotten History. I'm Sunil Misan.
And I'm Dean Gross.
Today on Forgotten History, we are going to be discussing the La Jolla Prohibition Cave in San Diego.
Welcome back to the show, Sunil. And I do say, today we have quite an interesting story.
Well, yes, it is a pleasure to be back, but do you know anything about these Prohibition Caves in La Jolla?
Let's first explain the prohibition to provide some background to the story.
Beginning in 1920, under the 18th Amendment, the manufacture, transport, and sale of alcohol was completely banned within the United States.
According to the Mob Museum, this formed the illegal industry of bootlegging, which is the illegal manufacture and trade of alcohol within the United States. This ranged from individual sellers to large organized crime families and mafias.
Gangsters such as Al Capone made loads of money from bootlegging, making their own alcohol or collecting it from Canada or Mexico.
That's pretty neat.
Al Capone's quite a recognizable name. I believe this man went to Alcatraz, and yes, it is true. Bootlegging was one of the main businesses of these mafias. So they would often, go up to, let's just say, the Canadian border, and they would collect these loads of alcohol, and then they'd bring them back. What do you think of that, Dean?
I also heard bootlegging wasn't the only thing he did. He just did a bunch of other things.
Yeah, well, Al Capone's quite an interesting guy. Back to the story. This practice was nationwide, and bootleggers had creative ways of smuggling alcohol here in San Diego.
According to the UCSD library, Tijuana is where Southern Californians would get their prohibition alcohol. While it was already a popular tourist destination, visits skyrocketed as it became a convenient place for Americans to drink legally.
What wasn't legal was the many tons of liquor being smuggled into California from Tijuana on offshore boats. According to Hidden San Diego, boats loaded with crates of alcohol would anchor within international waters, which I believe was just a few miles offshore, while smaller American boats would sail out, collect the product, and sneakily return and sell the alcohol.
These bootleggers were called rum runners, which brings us to our main story of today. The Rum Runners Cave, also called Smuggler's Cave in La Jolla.
Located on the Sunset Cliffs and Caves, Rum Runners Cave was theorized to provide covert entrance into La Jolla from the ocean.
That's actually, you're telling me from the ocean to La Jolla.
So, anyways, the American boats, they were smaller. They could have just been small little rowboats, and they would go to these big, larger boats, and then they'd load the product on. So basically, I'm pretty sure the point of these caves is these boats, like the little American ones, they basically go in this cave, and we'll get to what they did from there on out in a minute.
And so they did all of that for just a quick sip?
Yeah, I guess alcohol is quite the amenity for many people. People really wanted it, so they were willing to commit all this crime for it. Yeah.
The cave had several staircases inside of it that led to the surface where houses used to be. These passages have now been blocked off.
If I'm not mistaken, these caves were natural, so they weren't created by humans, and they were just kind of in a convenient place, really, for the bootleggers. And it was pretty helpful to them probably, because, as we said earlier, they had these staircases up that would. So apparently, according to these stories, they would lead into people's houses, and then they'd haul up the alcohol.
Secret delivery.
It is a secret delivery service, really. It's imagined that makeshift pulley systems could have been used to lift shipments from the small boats into the caves, and then, these pulleys would come down, they'd pick up the crates. It was very elaborate, truly.
Liquor was also stored in the caves as they were secluded from law enforcement, and the caves successfully transported illegal alcohol for the duration of the prohibition without being found.
So there were many sites in Southern California coast where liquor was smuggled, actually. It wasn't just this Rum Runners Cave, because Southern California must have been a big market at the time.
And even then, we still don't even know how much alcohol was smuggled.
Yeah.
It's still unknown to this day.
Yeah, these caves weren't even documented very much, so none of the numbers really came back, It could have just been a small amount or again, it could have been tons and tons and tons. This could have been one of the main sources in the San Diego area for people to get this alcohol.
But if I were to imagine, it was probably tons because of just how intricate the system was.
Yeah, with the pulleys and stuff. I get that. So, according to Britannica, due to this Great Depression, the federal government saw the idea of a tax on alcohol to be appealing for revenue. So they thought maybe instead of banning it, we could just heavily tax it, and that would make people pay them, and the government wouldn't run out of money as they pretty much were back then. But this caused the end of the Prohibition in 1933 with the incorporation of the 21st Amendment, which repealed the 18th Amendment, which was the one that banned it.
The importance of Runner's Cave was lost as alcohol was no longer illegal. Trade through the cave ceased, and it evolved into a destination for explorers, hikers, and tourists.
Today, the cave is marked with graffiti and carvings from travelers coming through. Sunset Cliffs is on a wildlife reserve, so fish, birds, and sea lions now call the cave home.
Runner's Cave is only a 40-minute drive away from Sage Creek, so if you like hiking, snorkeling, or exploring, it could be a fun destination with an interesting history for you to visit.
So, to recap our final opinions and thoughts, basically, so in 1920s and 30s, this cave was used by illegal bootleggers to collect alcohol from boats, mostly from Mexico, to smuggle it into the San Diego area.
And they made very intricate systems and pulleys and things to be able to smuggle it into San Diego efficiently.
I find this interesting because, like, alcohol was banned for over 10 years back then, and I just find it interesting how people were really willing to go to these great lengths to get alcohol. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's just shocking how much dedication and commitment people will put in to, just getting a quick sip, as I said before.
Yeah, some could think it's quite foolish, as alcohol. It's not a necessity for most people, but in the end, this cave really just kind of fell into oblivion, you could say, because
it was no longer necessary.
Yeah, I mean, the government, money prioritized everything in the end, which is quite an interesting lesson for everybody. Anyways, we hope you enjoyed the 5th episode of Forgotten History. Until next time, this is Sunil Nisan
and Dean Gross
on Forgotten History. Goodbye.